I'm Ali. Congratulations and good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah. And after Don't Worry, Darling, you shot The Whale. So what was that like to go from sunny, bright, open wide spaces to a dark, small apartment?
It was I mean, I didn't think about the transition too much. I actually appreciated the transition. What the beauty of doing one project to another is that they are different. I think it's important to exercise your versatility. And no matter how beautiful it was to shoot Don't Worry, Darling in these beautiful spaces, there's an expiration date on a film, which I appreciate, which means it's going to be over at some point, and then you could pivot to something else. So I was happy for the change, to be honest with you. It posed new challenges. I was coming off of something that was very beautiful to photograph to something that was as banal as an apartment in Idaho. So and you just dive into the challenges of the film and what the goals are. And with Darren and I, our early discussions was really about how do we make this a cinematic, how do we translate this cinematically? How far do we go? And we chose this sort of naturalistic approach that I think is successful in the movie and rooted in a reality. So, it's kind of the opposite of what I had done in the previous film. So I was appreciative.
Brendan Fraser gives an excellent performance in The Whale. So A, can you share what you remember about shooting the first few scenes with Brendan and your initial reactions and thoughts? And B, what were the particular challenges for you to shoot the scenes of Brendan as this 600-pound man whose mobility is restricted as a result?
I mean, I think the challenges were that this man looked really uncomfortable, and but to his credit, he used that discomfort as part of his character. And you're watching this person sort of he's such a good actor. I didn't know if he was really struggling or if he was really in pain or if he was, or if he was acting. But it was important to give him his space. I mean, he was, you know, I think with actors, they're put in a very, very vulnerable position, which is why they're so, you know, um, um, appreciated in our society. So they're doing something that a lot of people can't do, put themselves out there in a way and be very honest, embody a person, embody a character, and then become that person, and actually, let go of themselves, and whether they use anything from their personal life or not, they're doing something that's really kind of special. And when you have a really great performance, they're really doing something special. So that was what I was witnessing. But to be honest, I was because he was so consistently good. I didn't really see the power of his performance until I saw the cut, and even though I was at a front row seat to see it every day. I mean, the choices he was making between take one and take four, and the choices Darren and he would sort of collaborate on. You could see them in the movie, and I have a memory of them changing on camera. And I think, again, like I said earlier, I love having a front row seat to that thing. But yeah, he was tremendous. But he was subtle. There was no, like I said, it was very hard to distinguish whether or not he was experiencing all these things or if he was acting.
I read an interview piece where you said, and I quote, every director is an individual. If you take my work with Darren, for example, we don't rely on what we have done in our previous movies together. If I'm working with somebody for the first time, like with Olivia in Don't Worry, Darling, though I did do a short film with her earlier, things can change. What may be a close-up for one director may not be so for another, unquote. Can you talk some more about that, especially in your experience working with Darren for many years and working for the first time with Olivia?
Well, it's exactly what it says. I don't presume that a person is going to be exactly the same person they were before. Um, because the director is a storyteller motivated by the narrative and the screenplay. So that's going to inform changes. I mean, you get a sense, maybe you have an impression of how they're going to lean and what they don't like, you know. But oftentimes people are challenging themselves. Really good artists are challenging themselves. They're not trying to do the same thing. and they're maybe tweaking themselves in drastic ways and tweaking themselves in subtle ways. I think it's really, as a cinematographer, you just want to be as sensitive to that person as possible. Like what? Okay, so they're trying to do something different here. Oh, they're really striving for something different here, and then trying to understand it. Like it's incumbent upon us to actually understand what they're trying to do, even though it's not what, even if it, for example, if it wasn't explained, you're watching their actions and how they want to tell their stories, what shots do they need, what choices they're making. You just have to support them 100% and understand that they're doing it for a reason, and then help them on the next occasion when they um maybe we're setting up something similar but within a scene or a different scene from scene to scene. But I just honestly, it's a question of sensitivity, and awareness. So and like I think that working with Olivia on Don't Worry Darling was different than the short we did, because the subject matter was different, so it was handled differently. And Darren's always changing, you from film to film. He's always changing. So I try to approach everything with an open mind.
Can you also talk about filming the other fine actors in The Whale? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was your first time to work with Hong Chow, Sadie Sink, Ty Simpkins, and Samantha Morton.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It was fantastic, all of them. Just again, coming off of Don't Worry Darling, working with that cast and then working with a new cast, you know, I was saying earlier that, I didn't really understand the true power of Brendan's performance while we were making it, because he was so consistent and subtle, and his choices were so strong. And he was, there's things that were unspoken that he was doing as an actor, but like, he was sort of the sun, and all the planets were sort of revolving around him in the film. And Hong was tremendous. It wasn't what wasn't lost on me was, when we were shooting, is how good Hong was, and how good Sadie was, and Samantha and Ty. And you just, that's again having that front row seat there and watching these guys perform, and then sort of bring in, this is Charlie's world, and it's represented through all these people.
I frankly enjoyed Don't Worry Darling. I loved how he captured the performances and the costume and production design. Can you talk about how the controversies, which are mostly personal, distracted from a true appreciation of the film, and how unfair some of the reviews were, which mentioned Olivia's love life, something that these critics may not have mentioned if the film was directed by a man?
I mean, it's an interesting, it's a good question, and it's something that I'm not fully aware of the. I don't get involved, and I've been asked the question about the rumors about the film, but I didn't see anything happen when I was there, so I can't speak to those rumors in terms of anything. I mean, all I know is it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And Olivia represented herself, and she represented the film in the best possible way as a director. Um, and critics are going to be critics. I don't mind criticism, and I think there's a value. There's some really smart people who write a lot of smart things. It's when the criticisms become like gossipy, and they become personal, that I think that we need to check ourselves in our world, because I think we've let way too many people have an opinion, you know, and we should take everybody's opinion with a grain of salt. Every time somebody writes something that's personal about a filmmaker and not about the work, I think that demeans and diminishes every other writer out there who actually does a good job. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Can you talk about filming Florence Pugh's compelling performance in Don't Worry Darling, and how your camera and the light captured not only Florence, the wonderful actress, but also Florence, the movie star?
So what's the question again?
Okay. Can you also talk about filming Florence Pugh's compelling performance in Don't Worry Darling, and how your camera and the light captured not only Florence, the wonderful actress, but also Florence, the movie star?
Oh, that's all one and the same thing, one package. I mean,
Mhm.
she's tremendous. Um, I think, It's funny. It's to be asked about a single actor is a very odd question to me. But she was, and this is why I credit Olivia too. I think that everybody had a vibe. The way she cast the movie with the characters. I mean, Nick Kroll, for example, as her husband, and Asif and Kate Berlant, and those guys just they had timing, um, such comedic timing that they gave the group of people that we were getting familiar with such reality and an entertaining quality, and it's only even magnified by the fact that you realize this is a sort of fictitious world. And but Florence drove the entire thing. I mean, she's her character drove the whole thing, and it speaks to her as an actress that she comes in very similar to Olivia. This is why I love working with both of them. It was a creative energy. you know, it was an energy where you could feel safe to have an idea, create, and then try and create again after one take. Try, what if we did this, and then try that. So I felt like, Florence, beyond just being a great actress, I mean, she's a collaborator. She's a cinematic collaborator, and it's just a pleasure. And it makes it such a pleasurable experience to make a film, which is difficult to do. And when you're working from top to bottom, you're working with collaborators and people who are creative, and she's certainly a creative force.
And you have directed music videos before. How did that experience help you in capturing Harry Styles' dance and do the barrel rolls himself on the stage? I understand that it must have been very exhausting for Harry because he was doing all those dancing, but you wanted to capture all the movements of Harry.
Yeah, I don't I don't know that that experience shooting music videos really spoke to it. I didn't think about that. I mean, to me, Harry Styles was an actor in this film. He wasn't a musician. And so I rely more on the skill of trying to, you know, work with the director and try to put the camera in the right place for the moment, you know. Um and sometimes you don't know how things are going to be used. The barrels, how much are we going to do? And we kept doing it over and over again. And that scene was incredible to be around, the energy of it, even though, it was times of COVID and we didn't have as many people in the space as we would usually have. The energy was still high, very high in that. And it was uncomfortable. Not only because it was physically taxing for Harry, but it was uncomfortable because of what it meant in the movie. There was a tension there. But yeah, I don't really think that my music video experience actually is speaking to my work these days. Put it that way. It really, I think it gets too much credit, really, um, as something that would influence you your entire career. I just don't think it does. I think the films you do and the stories you tell influence your career more than just sort of you know, just the sort of I don't know, sales aspect, the sort of selling aspect and advertising aspect of music videos. I think doesn't really play into storytelling.
I also read that you're working on the re-release version of Pi. You made the film with Darren more than 2 decades ago, 24 years to be exact. So, A, what work does that entail on your part? You mean working on the re-release? And B, in working and watching Pi again, what does it remind you about that time in the late 1990s, about yourself and about working with Darren back then?
Oh, I mean, it was just it's fun to have this memento of our careers together, and looking at it and revisiting. Every image in that film tells a story about the time, when it from us personally, but just re-looking it just we've been looking at it, anticipating a potential re-release of the film. So we're doing we're bringing it up to today's technology essentially. So we're revisiting, re-looking at it, and it's been a little it's been a nice little visit to the past for sure. But just that was the early days. I think we're both aware of what that was and what it means. But it makes you feel youthful again, really. Just looking back on it and how kind of crazy we used to be.
At the recent Venice Film Festival, both of you and Lav Diaz wanted to see each other. I tried my best to make that happen, but unfortunately, your respective busy schedules in Venice did not allow that meeting to happen. So, can you talk about the Filipino makers like Lav, Eric Matty, Martica Ramirez Escobar, who directed the acclaimed Sundance film Leonor Will Never Die, and more, making it in the international film world? And B, would you like to collaborate with Filipino filmmakers?
I would certainly like to collaborate with them. I mean, I'd like to do a film made by a Filipino filmmaker. I mean, it's interesting. I pride myself on doing different things and trying to diversify and and it'd be interesting. Like I was saying, it's like Raya is a friend of mine, and his every one of his films is different. You know, and right, which is right up my alley because he's always challenging himself. And Lav, like I love most of them, especially the ones that hit the world stage. I feel like I love the cinematic portrayal of like of the sociology of a Filipino and of the Pinoy, psychology and the politics and some of the things that they say, I think is wonderful to watch, and I think I'd like to participate in it. But the time will come. The time will come. I mean, I'm sorry I wasn't able to see live, but honestly, Venice was I wasn't there long, and having two films there was not easy to break out and actually do my own thing.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but this year, a great trend seems to be emerging. Actors who usually play supporting roles in Philippine films and television are making breakthrough performances in European films, like Dolly De Leon in Triangle of Sadness by Ruben Östlund, which won Palme d'Or in Cannes. Soliman Cruz has the lead role in To the North, a Romanian film that won a Critics' Prize in Venice. And Chai Share, who has stopped dealing with Eva Green and Mark Strong in a coming film called Nocivo. Can you comment on this delicious irony of very talented but not well known actors in the Philippines getting their big breaks in European films?
I think it just speaks to the evolution of Filipino cinema being and the people you mentioned before have made their mark on a world on in the world community, in the cinematic community. So it only stands to reason that other people, actresses, other craftspeople are looked in and sought after to contribute to cinema around the world. It doesn't always have to be like I'm the shining example of because I'm Filipino doesn't mean all I can tell is Filipino stories. You know, I mean cinema and filmmaking is all about telling human stories. So you know, having this natural progression is let's just say I'm pleased to know that it's happening and pleased to see. Um, and I think that we just have to continue. And as a the filmmaking community, and I've had the good pleasure of meeting many Filipino cinematographers in Manila, and it's a energetic community and growing community. So it's only a matter of time where we see more Filipino films on the world stage, and I think that's a really exciting thing.
And for my last question, what are you working on next? Are you able to tell me the title of the film that you're working on in the East Coast?
I'm on NDA. No,
But anything after that? Anything that you can disclose or no?
no, I'm not. I don't have anything right after this. I'm gonna finish this up. This has been the better part of what I'm on now. Has been most of the year. I have a couple more weeks, and then I'm looking forward to the next thing. But I don't have anything.
Okay, Matthew, thank you so much for spending your Sunday morning with us. I really appreciate it. And again,
Thank you.
we hope to see you again.